Welcome back. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hi, hello. It's so fun to be on video.
I know it is.
Good to be here with you on this beautiful day.
I wish it was beautiful. It's very cloudy here in LA, but I'm so happy for you that it is beautiful.
Well, maybe you're happier to be with me because you are inside, not missing any sunshine
That's true.
outside.
Also true. And today's topic is fun for us, I think. And I think it's timely for a lot of people as well. We're going to touch a little bit on career change. And I'm going to use a little air quotes around that because, as usual, we were talking a little bit before we started. And you asked me what I was sort of thinking about with this. And the reality of it is, I've been thinking about how I don't know if I've ever had a true career change because I'm a coach now, but I've been in the service industry in some way, shape, or form since my very first job. And
Mm.
so, even as a Weight Watcher leader, they're now called coaches, but I was a leader at the time. I was a facilitator. I wasn't, a coach. And,
Mhm.
and yet, when I look back in my life, I've always held some kind of service space. So I don't know where career change comes in here for me. What about you?
I think you're just a natural leader. It's interesting because, I've been talking to a lot of friends and families about this, and I think there's something in the air lately, maybe
Mm,
the economy.
yeah, for sure.
I think it's just our age. We're going to talk to people who are getting to a place in their life where they're like, is this what I'm going to do till I retire? Or do I want to try something else? Or do I want to retire? Lucky sons of bitches. But for me, it's an interesting thing because I have a lot of young people in my life, not just my kids, but nieces and nephews, my friends' kids, like a lot of young people who get that message. Well, for two things. I don't know if your kids go through this because your kids are at a very specific type of school, which is so cool. But when you're going to that college application area, they're like, well, what do you want to do? And so I have noticed all my kids at some point at age 13, 14, 15, are like, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, why should you? Why?
Right, totally.
Most
Why
people
should you
don't.
even at 20? Yeah.
Exactly. However, I am married to someone who knew since he was a child that he
Mm,
wanted to go into medicine and did. And like he pursued it. Even in high school, but even as a younger kid, but in high school, he was actually shadowing surgeons at work and doing,
wow.
so he's just always been so linear that way that I always have to say to my kids, no, look at me. It's like there's other options. There's a very different, way to go about it. So I think, if you just look at my family alone, my husband and I, we've done it really differently. And he has a lot of envy for people
Mm,
who kind of have a curvier career path. For some reason I'm imagining skiing, like he just bombs the hill and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Although I used to bomb the hill. But so yeah, I think for me, like I got a master's in education. I was all set to be working in school settings forever. And then coaching came along, which is that big of it. Like, when you think about it,
Yeah.
because we work for an education company as coaches as well. I mean, I do think that I think there's a lot of similarities to being an educator, to being
Yeah.
a coach, to being in support, and all the jobs I ever had before that were in customer service type things,
Right.
restaurants, retail, things like that. So I do think you and I both have excellent communication skills, and that seems to be the thread,
I mean,
throughout
my
all the
degree
things
was
we
in
do.
mass comm.
Yeah,
So,
that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and PS to the younger people listening, my major had nothing to do with either of these things I'm doing. So until, of course, I studied education, but
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think and so it's funny you say that. So Liam, I think, has known from the get. So Liam has known since he was about 12 that he wanted to be an artist. But what's fascinating is now as he is going through college, he's realizing he wants to be an artist, but he's not looking to have a job in art.
Mm.
And that has shifted, right? So and then Charlotte, again, she's just grown up being an artist, but yes, she is very specifically wants to go to a school, a college where she is either or maybe both studying directing and acting, so you're right, they're on a little more targeted path
I'm
than
clapping
I
because
am.
I have seen her at work and she's brilliant.
Yes,
And
she is. Yeah.
both your kids will be great at whatever they choose to do.
And there's the thing, right? I mean, there's the crux. Like, if you you can change careers at 30, you can change careers at 50. I mean, we're 54 and we're starting this pod. There's every once in a while that inner critic comes into my brain and goes, why do you think you can do anything with this beyond the pod because you're 54? And then I'm like, and so many people have done, and it doesn't matter. It does not matter what age you are. If you find something that is your passion and you want to pursue that, I think that's brilliant. And that's really what we're talking about here. I mean, it could be starting something new after you've established yourself in another job or career or role. It could be a promotion. It could be a complete total industry change. It could be going back to work after you've taken time off to be a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. And it could just be quitting and starting your own business. And I mean, that's really the biggest piece of change I've done. I never in a million years thought I'd be an entrepreneur. And so that part's been new to me, to start my own business and have to put myself out there as the product. That's probably been the biggest shift for me.
You're so good at it. I know. And one of the things we run into just a lot with our peers and our clients, frankly, like we've both been there too at different times, probably, or, we've talked about this a lot, is the question and fear around how do I make a change or start something new and be successful at this stage of life, be successful again in something different. Gosh, I coach so many people around this, and you do too. I was successful at this. How do I know I'll be successful at this? Spoiler alert. You already know how to be successful. That's like end sentence.
Oh my God. So many times I say that with, not only the students, but the entrepreneurs that I'm working with in my private practice, or even, I work with entrepreneurs, but I also just work with women in their career, and that imposter syndrome that shows up and says, who are you to? It's not paying attention to all the ways you've already changed and survived and thrived. And I'm constantly bringing women back to, but you've already done this. So believe it,
Yes. I think it's the key. I think actually we probably know, there's also the question of, are you happy doing what you're doing? You might be successful. You might love what you're doing and you're happy with it. That's great. Good for you. I think sometimes we think we're not happy with something and we just need to kind of take a break from it and come back to it and realize we do really love what we do. Maybe we need to change the dynamic there. Maybe we need to take better care of ourselves, have better boundaries, but actually we do. My husband went through this early on with the practice he joined. He started to wonder, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Maybe I don't love what I do, until he realized that wasn't a great fit. And then when he found a better fit, he loved it again. So, it's like, those things are really important to say, well, am I happy? Right? Because we're here to ask, if you're considering a career change from something you're currently doing, have been comfortable in for a long time, or maybe you're putting off the fear of flying without a net to create something, are you happy? Are you happy with it? Because that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So, if you're asking and wondering, and then you're probably ready. If you're even asking that question, am I ready? Then you probably are. George Eliot said, it's never too late to be what you might have been. Oh, that is awesome. I love that. I
do love that. Right? There's no age for that. And I think the other thing we talk about all the time is, like life, careers are not linear. I think sometimes they can be in the traditional sense that we look at them. Of course, there's certain jobs we could look at, like entry level, you make it up to middle management, executive level. That is a lot rarer than people realize. I think there's, and that's assuming the company is viable and healthy.
Yeah.
Because there might be a supposed path, but then it's not really clear once you get in. So, I don't know. That's the way we used to see them to be. And some are, like Brendan my husband's an example of that, right? Most career paths, I think, have twists and turns and lead us, I don't know, to unexpected paths and destinations. And we discover more about what we're good at and enjoy. I think as I was learning, I was always someone who worked hard. I was always interested in a lot of different things. I really thought my career would end up in nonprofit where it started. And I loved it and found out what I was good at and enjoy, and it's just more what was happening in my life and what was I learning in that job that really motivated me to consider coaching was, here I was working I was working for I Have a Dream Foundation. They're called something different now, but the local chapter is in a high poverty school. And I was working with all these moms who, most of them didn't speak English. Like a lot of them were immigrant families. And I remember, just my job was really to bring a lot of donors and attention to this school so we could increase the amount of resources that were coming to these families to decrease their mobility, increase stability, all the things, like all the supports. And it was successful. But I remember talking with the guy who was in charge of that kitchen and the lunch and like the free and reduced lunch. And we were like, nothing is going to help these moms with like stabilize their situation with these kids if there's no access to like groceries out here, or to healthy food, or if there's not jobs for, like I really saw that the moms needed the support, and so many of them weren't sure if they were welcome yet because they didn't even speak the language. So I was incredibly focused on that. At the same time, there was health things going on in my own family, my son's diagnosis, my dad's, and my aunts. And so I was like studying all of the time on my own, like learning about nutrition and learning about, just health stuff. And my husband's finally like, we have 3 kids and I know you love what you do and you're good at what you do and you'll probably do it anyway, but why don't you go and study that? Why don't you learn a little bit about like coaching moms and nutrition, because you're already learning it anyway. Why don't you do it officially? So it's kind of like I backed into it, right? That's an example of a twist and turn. So I ended up doing that, studying that, became a health coach for a while until I really realized I liked more, life and leadership coaching. But I did like the health coaching for a little while because it was a really good bridge into understanding where to start with people. And but I didn't stick with it, right? Like, and that's a twist and turn, right? I didn't like go from nonprofit to health coaching to this. It was just all part of a progression of what I really loved and what I got good at. So I think ideally you follow your curiosity and you find something to try. Hopefully you get paid for it. Sometimes I think it's really good to volunteer, like, or do what I was doing, dabble in it and see how much you love it, see what you're spending all your time on. And we say follow your passion, but I've noticed that's stressful because sometimes people are like, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I mean, I'll have a client come in and say, I think I want to leave my career, but I don't even know what I want to do. So I think it's a little bit about just giving yourself permission to step back and take a breath and figure out, like, what are you curious about? Curiosity is a lot less pressure than your passion.
I mean, that makes total sense. I also, you're talking about twists and turns. I think about, I think I use the word morphing a lot as well, because I think, again, if I'm looking at my entire career from the upper crust making sandwiches when I was 16 all the way to 54 and working with amazing women who are just have phenomenal ideas and supporting them through their imposter syndrome and all of that. I've morphed into this. Like I can look at my timeline and see it, I can see where it goes. And so I often talk about any decision you make, you're not married to either. Like you can, as you said, try something out, get curious. And this idea that, from cradle to grave at a job, yeah, that was perhaps a thing back in the 50s, 60s, maybe even 70s. But I know people who started jobs out of college, moved up. And then one day they said, your job's being eliminated. And so this idea of continuity and loyalty, companies don't return that,
No.
and so that, if there's I was just talking to a client about this the other day. Like, if you want to try for this, do it. Don't just because you think, well, but things are kind of going here. This position that was handed, or this woman reached out to my client and essentially laid out the perfect job for her. And she's going a little bit back and forth. And I was like, throw your hat in the ring. You can still say no, even if you get offered the job, but throw your hat in the ring. And that's the other thing about women is, and I think we preface this on references on another pod, but women tend not to apply for something unless they feel 100% qualified. Fuck that. Yeah. Apply at 60% qualified, go in and try something. Don't assume that you're not ready for that change. If there is an inkling of curiosity or excitement or you feel, jazzed by the idea of trying something new, throw your hat in the ring.
Absolutely. And here's another thing, like, cause you're reminding me of, a client of mine who's like trying to decide if she wants to go back to a company she used to work for because she moved away and went back. And you're reminding me of that. And I think when you feel like you're not fully qualified, let your intuition be the rest of that percentage. It really is totally going to get you to either know that this is the exact right thing to like throw your hat in for, or just not waste your time on. Cause it's like, I'm only 60, like, okay, well, what do you want? And then, this happens all the time with clients. They tell us what they think, what they assume, or what they feel. And we're like, okay, so what's true? And what do you want? And that takes a second. And then when you can get there, it's like, what does your intuition tell you about the rest of the stuff that you think, like, okay, you think you want it. You also think you're not qualified. What does your intuition tell you? Well, I could probably learn it. Probably other people have faked it too, because we're all faking it till we make it sometimes in certain things. Obviously, there's probably mechanical engineering where that can't be true. But even then, I have coached someone in that kind of role where she's like, I'm the only one with communication skills, so I can make up the rest, But so like intuition, like really, where do you see this going for you? Picture yourself, step into it. What do you think is still scary or that you're unqualified for? 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
So it's just because it's new.
Yeah. So there is sort of 4 types of career changes as we sort of see it, right? So there's functional, so a new role or a promotion in the same industry. There's an actual industry career change. So again, changing industries altogether, but maybe using the same skills. And for me, I think that's kind of, especially in my coaching career, that's where I've morphed. I started like you as a health coach, moved into being a life coach. I didn't mean to, but I just all of a sudden took a step back and looked at my clients, and I realized I was working with them on life. And then it morphed into being more of a business career coach, because that's who I'm working with. And then there's the entrepreneurial career change. Again, you and I have both done that with starting our own health or coaching practices. And then the double career change, dun, 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 which is switching roles and industries. So let's talk about some reasons why people might change or consider making a change.
Okay. I'm sorry about the dogs.
They might decide to change jobs so they can work out of the home and not have to do
jobs. Or a place that lets them bring their dog to work.
Oh.
Okay. I'm going to let you do this part, and I'm going to see if I can quiet them. Go ahead.
Okay.
If you can see, I think we have the same notes. So
yes,
reasons.
We do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So reasons for making a job change in the midlife, which is obviously where we are now. And this comes from monster.com. Lack of fulfillment, monotonous, craving more, no place to ascend. That is not a fun place to be. If you are waking up every morning, or worse, going to bed every night, the sort of tagline now of Sunday scaries, if that's what you're dealing with, this might be a good opportunity to get curious and find another role. Financial reasons, earning potential needs change as you get older and you have kids, and then kids move out. And so different financial things, needing a better work-life balance. I think that's a lot of what we talk about our students, right? Our students come in wanting this work-life balance. If you are changing industries, burnout's huge, for sure. Toxic culture. Have you ever worked at a place that had a toxic culture? And I know the dogs might be barking, but I don't care.
That's okay. Thank you for that. I love working with a partner. That could be a reason you switch change jobs. You have good coworkers. So thank you. Yes, I have actually. And it was like was it my first job out of college? No. It's my like second job out of college. When I first got out of college, I turned down a couple of job offers so I could do Jesuit Volunteer Corps, which is like Peace Corps, in the United States. I was in Washington, D.C. My second job was with the AmeriCorps program. And it was so great until it wasn't, like there was just, it was one of those situations where you thought, well, this executive director is probably too stupid to do any damage. That was the dumbest thing. Don't ever think that.
Yeah.
That can happen. May have not even been is the intention. But yeah, it got really, really bad and weird with the board. And I wasn't directly involved in any of the toxic stuff, but it was hard to
It
see good
seeps.
people go. Yeah, it was hard to see good people go and get let go. That part was bad. And I remember the day that I left and I was like, "Woo!" Like it was just this freeing feeling, even though, it's like I sort of felt valued. I sort of had my own lane and I was doing good work, like, but it just didn't feel good anymore to be part of that. Not to say all AmeriCorps programs for that. It's just that one.
Well,
that
and
one
things
little
shift,
branch.
right? Any jobs shift, careers or
Mhm.
companies shift, right? You can walk in and start working for something or somewhere, and it's exactly right. And then
Yeah.
things happen, leadership changes, all the things.
I mean, I think it was like 23 or 24, so that's
That
young
was
and
pretty.
impressionable. And
Yeah.
a nonprofit, and one of the reasons I laugh about, like, we coach a lot of students who have been in nonprofits. So we
Yeah.
hear this all the time, and it's so true. Like you get a warped salary, self-identity with salary because you work so many hours. You work so many
Right.
crazy hours. Like when you're devoted to a cause, you work a lot. So even the best intentioned people can create a toxic environment when everyone's expected to work ungodly hours. And we were young. We had all this energy, and then we go out together afterwards and keep working on stuff. And so I think to make things so great for the kids we were supporting, we didn't have any good leadership on how to have boundaries around our lives. So that was another reason it was toxic. It just wasn't healthy.
Yeah. We just talked about you might want to work from home. Maybe you want to go back into work. That's an interesting thing that is new to this time of the world, right? I mean, work from home was so weird and unusual pre-COVID, and now people don't want to go back into the office, and productivity is actually a little bit better when you're not worrying about sitting in 2 hours of traffic like I could in LA, and I know I personally thank God for this because I do miss working with people. And I spend the majority of my life in my bedroom. If you're watching
True.
YouTube, I am in my bedroom, and so there's an aspect of missing that in that sort of water cooler interaction.
I know. This is why these things are fun. We get to be in
Yeah,
here together.
we get to have a water cooler.
And like we have worked for a company that is remote, but events have always been something that we've both participated in, and it's such a great way to do it. So I think for people looking for a mix of both.
Yeah. If you could be something like that. So what about the benefits of a new career? I'll let you
back to the work from home. I was
Oh.
just thinking, like, people who, because of COVID, suddenly had their spouses working from home. So they might be looking for a job that isn't work from home. Resonate?
Yes, 100%. I love my husband, but we have been working from home together since March 13th of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Not that I'm counting the days. No, this is no new news. We have this conversation all the time. I always knew I was working from home. I have worked for a remote company since I've been out here in LA. His company went remote, as they all did. They went back, and then nobody wanted to come back. He was the only one in the office. And so they said, okay, let's forever work from home. And he misses it too. He misses the camaraderie. Yeah, that was not, he didn't choose this. I chose to work for a company I knew was remote.
There's such a, like, and we Brenda and I have to figure that out a lot. When I'm sure every family did, when everyone was forced to be home for a period of time. Oh God, I was so glad that we had created a room in the basement, and we had hardscape the backyard, because we literally needed 5 places to be on Zoom. Right. It was crazy. Yep. But even before that, Brennan's job, the admin part of his job is big, and he does a lot of it from home. And it's like, we do not have a similar work style. If I'm working, I'm really, like, I want to be working. And if I walk through, and I bet you I'm guilty of something similar in reverse. If I would go to get a drink of water, I don't want to answer a bunch of questions about something else. Like, I really want to still be at work. So I don't know if you guys have to figure that out, but it is funny. It's a funny dynamic. It's like it's a privilege, and it's not, right? There's so many things about it that are great, but yeah, I just thought that was funny to go back to.
Yes. No,
all right. So benefits, like, what are the benefits of going for a new career, right? Like, well, I think it's always, if we're not growing, we're dying, right? So like, maybe you're growing in your job, but if you feel like you're kind of plateauing, it is a really great opportunity to brush up and, like, kind of stretch yourself again. It's always good gathering your references and reviews and kind of taking stock of we don't do that enough. And then step back and go, what, like, yay me, what are people saying? What's the feedback I've been gathering? What am I really good at? How am I making an impact? So brushing up on your resume officially, or even just in your mind, by gathering all that and really taking stock of what you've already created and accomplished, is a really good exercise. Also, you're going to have, if you really look for something new to do, you're going to have new opportunities to lead.
Yeah.
And that leads to new, potential and personal and professional growth opportunities. It's incredible in the family what happens when somebody's thriving. It's that rising tide just brings everyone with them. It's not just the more money. That's great. If it's more money, it's like this person we love, who we live with, is happier and feels more seen, or is just enjoying something new. Everybody's inspired by that, and kind of, it's all trickling out. So and then obviously professionally, that's fantastic. A new opportunity professionally could be more money, but could be, that's the next thing. Like, there's the increased earning potential. There's the new social connections you make, the new people you're going to meet. I mean, I love my career changes because it's led me to friends like you, and like some of my best friends in the world have been coworkers that I've never actually been in the same room with a ton. Yeah. And that's incredible because of, the depth and the level of the way we work. And then there's also the career longevity, because that allows you to work to an older age if you want to. Some people really want to. My dad was furious that they were going to impose a retirement on him as a pilot. He was so sharp, and he would sit at a dinner table. For anyone who would listen, he'd be like, there's brain surgeons working on your brain in their 70s. Why can't I fly a plane? And we're like, well, I mean, but when you change up, you kind of gather and create a longer amount of energy, I think, for your new thing. You want to see it through. So it allows you to do that, and feeling like you're contributing, and feeling like your wisdom and your experience is valued is really, and back to the personal thing, as I'm saying this, I think of so many couples that are like, I'm so glad he has a new job and he's not just home all the time, because I don't know what we would do together. Like they've got new exciting things to share with each other. Yeah. So yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So what about, how do we know if it's time for a change?
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I think you started this, right, with, am I happy?
Yeah.
And something I say a lot is, humans are not meant to be unhappy. We're meant to be happy. And we can really, going back to your gut thing, right? We can really hone in on, are we feeling in alignment? Do I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be? Or does it feel like it's time to go?
Yeah. There's also like, what am I good at? Right. I mean, I think that there's, we've done a ton of this, like, as coaches, and we've been coached. And I think sometimes it's really helpful to reach out to people you've worked with, to peers, people who know you, people you volunteer with, and ask people, what do you think are my strengths? What am I good at? Because I think sometimes you might find you're not even in the job that's using those things that you're good at, that you love, I mean, so it's like, am I happy? Do I love what I'm doing? And am I even good at this? Like, maybe I am, but maybe there's other things I'm good at that I would enjoy more.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually I got the opportunity to do that recently. Because I have a client who wanted to talk about leadership. And because I have been in leadership, I asked both you and a fellow colleague, Juan, to reflect what it was about me as a leader that you liked. And oh my God, I got on with my client. I was like, thank you for wanting to talk about this today, because I got the most beautiful reflections from both you and Juan that it did fill the cup, and I've also done the thing where I have kept reflections in all of my jobs. I was going through something recently. We were going through our file cabinet, and there was this big stack of papers, and it was from Beltone when I worked there pre-Liam. And I started to read it through because I thought I was going to throw it away. And I realized it was everybody congratulating me on a promotion I had gotten, and all these reflections. And I said to Darren, I'm like, I'm not going to throw this away. I'm like, this feels really good to have still, And so I think it's a great idea to go back and sort of capture those things people have said about you and believe them. And so, yeah, perhaps you want a higher salary, better retirement, better flexibility. But what might also happen is you think this, and then you start reflecting on your current role wherever you are, and you see the joy in where you're at. Like a decision to go down a career change might keep you exactly where you are, and that's okay too.
Yeah, it occurs to me, and I will make a note of this. Like, this will be a good set of questions to add into a post or somewhere where you all are listening, because I think these are really good self-assessments. Like, because another one is, what motivates me? What motivates me now might be very different than what used to motivate me, and that is very true for me. I don't know about you. Like, I used to be really motivated by, like, what is the impact I will have, and who will I be working with, right? And now it's like, I'm way more motivated by, like, because time is so important to me, like, how can I have the greatest amount of impact in the least amount of time so that I can have more time for me and my family, right? So, like, I want to still do the same great level of work, and I'm already in contact with the people I adore. So, like, it doesn't, like, I don't need to, like, I mean, obviously, if I was doing something new, I would go do the proper networking, because that's important and it's always wonderful. But I'm not as motivated by that anymore, because I've done enough of that now I'm a little bit more motivated by efficiency. How do I feel as, like, that I'm making as big of an impact, that I'm being valued monetarily and, and emotionally or mentally, and, like, do it in the least amount of time so that I can have that work-life balance. So, yeah.
So if you're looking to make a career change, what are some of the tips you have, or that we both have, I guess, to share around next steps?
Yeah. I think, first of all, go back to that intuition. Like, first tap into your intuition. I think there's a lot. I think finally we're living in a time, but it is very much, Lisa, the water you and I swim in as coaches, because when I talk to brilliant people in my life, sometimes they don't go there, but they forget, but that we possess everything we know. That's our come from as coaches. Like, there is no knowledge that exists outside you that you don't have. Everything you need is inside you. So get quiet. Tap into your intuition. You already know. There's a part of you that already knows what your next best step is, even if it's staying, but, like, adjusting it so that staying feels like your choice and it feels really good. So tap into your intuition, what feels right. And if you have an actual choice, this is, like, the fun we get to do as coaches. Like, really allow yourself, or have a coach do this with you, or a friend, or allow yourself to say, well, there's A and B. Step into A, totally load that up. Imagine what that would be like. Come back. Don't have to have any answers. Step into the other one. Come back. What felt like the right next step? Your intuition knows. Your future self knows. And I think we live in such a busy world that we're constantly like, I have to make this decision here in my head. I have to make this decision with my wallet. I have to make this decision for other people. But so if you start there, a lot of these next questions won't matter, but at least start there.
Yeah. I love that. I do that, what you just talked about, with clients all the time. I also have a really great session around that takes a little longer. Like, that one's great because it's you can get a really quick intuition hit. There's another session I do with my clients around finding your purpose, and it's not as heavy or as intense as it sounds. It's actually really, really lovely. And quite frankly, I did this with one of my clients who, when we started together, one of her goals was to change jobs. And then we did this life purpose thing, and she was sort of like, the thing that came up for her, she was like, I don't really want to do that. And ultimately she ended up changing jobs within the company she was at.
That's cool.
It was awesome. And she had, like, the best year ever last year. She got like $100,000 bonus because she ended up staying where she was at, but she changed roles that was more in alignment for her. So I do think, I mean, at the risk of sounding like we're promoting ourselves, like, having a coach who can see what you can't see, and guide you and love you and support you and cheer you on. And also give practical information. It could be incredibly helpful if you're looking to change careers or build a business or whatever it might be.
I don't think it's shameless self-promotion. Lisa's a fucking great coach.
Well, we're promoting both of us because also is Kari.
But also, like, we have a lot of coaches. Like, we are all about promoting women, and one of the reasons we both coach
coaches.
One of the reasons we both coach women who are in these transitions is because we believe in you.
Yeah.
Right. We believe in you. And that's the thing is like, we've talked about this on the time one, like, show me how you spend your time and I'll show you what you care about. So if what you spend your downtime thinking about or playing with or noodling on isn't like at all related to your job, that might be something to think about and go, gosh, like, this thing over here, is there some way I could tap into that with what I love? I mean, who knows? I mean, obviously it depends on what you're into, but go girl. But I do think that sometimes we don't even realize that we disconnect from our bodies and we go to work and we get a paycheck and then we come home and then we tap into the things we love. What if you could find a way to have them melt?
Yeah. All the parts. And then there are the fears, right? There can be fears around financials, if you leave a job without a job, and sometimes you have to make that leap, and that's okay. But so it is facing your fears and going back to a question we mentioned not too long ago. Is it true? When you start loading up on stories, in a couple of weeks, you're going to hear our human design podcast with Amy Douglas, and man, oh man, that's somebody who we went through master coaching program together. And I watched her transform from somebody who thought she had to be able to completely replace her banking career financially with her coaching career. And yet she wasn't feeling good. And I'm not speaking out of, she'll tell you without a second of hesitation, her hair was falling out. She was having heart palpitations. And over the course of time of going through coaching and being coached, she really slowly but surely, and then faster, all the things she thought had to be in place, all the fears she held, they dissipated. And she just stepped in fully into being a coach. And now she is one of the most powerful coaches, especially around human design, that I have ever met. And had she let her fears and the story she was telling herself about what she needed to have in the bank, quote unquote, I mean, I don't know if she'd ever done it, So it is about reflecting, thinking forward, being resilient, and not feeling like every duck has to be in a row before you make a leap.
A great example of someone who's working in something that she totally digs and like geeks out on. That's so great.
So
I think, I mean, like, and just to recap a little here, like, tapping your intuition, explore your interests and passions. Volunteering is a great way to decide if there's something you might like. I have a great quick little story of there's this place in Portland. I actually just went there with one of your clients who happened to be in town, Norman, but it's called the Sports Bra. And it's the first female sports bar. It's all female sports. That's all they show in the country. And it's such a cool story. And I heard the chef owner speak at the Moth. And she had the coolest story. Like, she went out, she was first generation Vietnamese and, was supposed to go get her education and do something really specific with her life. And she was like, I kind of just want to make food. And her dad said, tell you what, if you want to quit school, find a job, find the worst job in the career you think you want and do that for a year. And if you still love it, I'll let you quit. And she said, I became the fry boy at Red Robin. It was horrible. And I loved it. And so like, I love that as sort of an example of like, you'll know, like if you kind of throw yourself in as a volunteer or something that even just everyone else thinks is crap and you still love it. Not everybody has that luxury. She was young at the time, but if you have the opportunity to dabble in something, doesn't have to be a whole year, that'll tell you. And then we also talked about talking with the coach. Another thing we have here is networking. Both Lisa and I are big into networking. That's just something that comes naturally. I think that like, that's just a huge part of who you are. You teach that. Yeah. What do you want to say about that? When people are considering a career change, how might networking work?
Well, I think it doesn't have to be super structured. I mean, I happen to be in a networking group that is very well structured, has been around for 45 years. It's been glorious. It's a really great group. But, in this day and age, there's a million ways to network that doesn't have to be so structured. And the reality of it is every conversation you're having, whether you are an introvert or an extrovert, every conversation you're having is an opportunity to network. And I think there's a lot to be said for you get things based on who you know. And so if you're showing up to any conversation with anyone, whether it's picking up the kids at school or at a bar or wherever it might be, have genuine, authentic conversation. And if you are in the process of thinking about a career change, ask, tell, talk.
Totally.
Hey, you know what? I'm doing this right now, but I got to be honest, I'm thinking about making a career change, and that this might be what I'm doing. So if there's anybody that it might be nice for me to meet and talk to and resource, let me know, but don't be afraid to ask, because this goes back to people love to help. And so I personally, that's one of the things I love about my networking group. I just said this on our call the other day. I feel like I have a absolute, I'm going to show my 54 years right here, Rolodex of amazing humans. There is probably not a thing you can ask me, a service you need, that I cannot hook you up. And that is my absolute favorite thing to do. And so, networking comes in all shapes and sizes. No question.
The word I want to point out of all the things you just said that were brilliant is authentic. That's like when we're coaching, I know that you come across this too. I coach people all the time. They're afraid of that, right? Because I'm not that, like you said, introvert, extrovert. Guess what? Everyone can succeed at networking by being themselves.
Yep.
Introverts have an advantage because they're amazing listeners, right? Yeah. And I think extroverts are too, but I think that introverts forget that they have assets. They in this setting, they think, well, I'm not, lean into what you have. Sometimes the most memorable people at a networking event are the ones who ask you questions and listen to you. Be the person who asks questions and listens and remembers. If you make two, I was about to I can't be watching two.
With three
if you make, I was going to say three, but then I went to two. If you make two meaningful connections, I guarantee you it matters. Being you is exactly how to network. It's not about how to be a networker. It's about how to be you and meet new people. So that's what people want to work with. Let's talk about lastly, just this whole idea of like some people are leaving their jobs to go work for themselves.
Yes, they are.
What are the different ways people go work for themselves?
I mean, you could be a consultant, right? The client you were talking about that you had lunch with of mine the other day, like she's got a couple of different roles. She runs her own coaching business, but she also is a consultant and she comes from the nonprofit world. And so there's a ways. I mean, you and I have two businesses, right? We have our private practice, and now we've got the pod, so there's lots of different ways you could be a gig worker. There's whatever lights you up.
Oh, that's a great example. My friend Sally, she gets hired to do events for companies, and then she takes the summers off. Yeah. That's beautiful. A great idea.
Yeah. And there's no shame in it. We've put so much emphasis on a college degree and an MBA and blah, blah, blah. And, if you're happy, just do it. And that abundance, that space will bring you what you need.
Yeah. I think the three things like that, some we've covered and some we haven't, when it comes to working for yourself, it takes unshakable belief, even when no one else has it. Like that like what you're doing matters, and that's a thing that I think that you and I probably love the most about what we've done together at our job and what we do with our clients is like really helping people cultivate that belief that we have in them for themselves.
Yep.
Because sometimes people are going to project all their fears onto you. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, gosh, I could never do that. So you really got to know that what you're doing is going to make an impact if you don't quit. Cause that's the only way it won't is if you quit, and then it's this, like I believe in it because it's something I care about, because you can't just decide to like go be an entrepreneur in something you're not connected to just for the money. That will fall flat. You got to do it because you care about it, because it takes a little while. So it's stay resilient, plan financially, however you need to. If you have a partner, you got to figure that out together. It's a little lean at first, but it's exciting because when it's lean, you're really, really focused.
Yeah.
You stay resilient, like some of the best advice I've ever seen out there when I was, early in my coaching business was go for no's, like have conversations, try to collect every objection you can, because at some point they won't be, but also those objections are going to help you because people aren't objecting to you. They aren't at all. I've always said that, like, I'm not inviting people to, invest in me. I'm inviting people to invest in themselves if they find a connection and they trust me as their guide. Right. And that's the same thing you're doing. And that's what I'm always like, whatever it is that I'm, offering to people or inviting people into, it's only if they're ready for it and if they need that guide and accountability for it. And so planning financially allows you to know that, like, you're going to be okay as long as you really lean into getting good at communicating what you do and inviting people into that. And also, if you can, just do the best you can with budgeting for that, because it does take a little time. Sometimes it isn't overnight. Sometimes it is.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think patience is imperative. We all want everything yesterday. Nothing works that way. And no company, when you see a company up and running and successful, you have no idea the time and the chop wood, carry water piece of it that has gone on and on and on to get them where they are, and so that patience, and there again, maybe you hire a coach who helps guide you through that patience, but regardless, I really want everyone who decides to go on to being an entrepreneur to have someone in their corner who reflects back to them all the things they have done, because when you're an entrepreneur and your business isn't quite off the ground or it's going slower than you wanted to, if you can't see all the things you are doing and you're only focusing on what you are doing, that is the quickest way to burn out. So, hopefully you have someone in your corner. I just got snaps.
You just gave me something like that's so brilliant. And back to networking, that like loops me back to networking. That's why you want to be connected with other people doing the same thing. It really is fantastic to have people cheering you on and seeing you. It really does breathe a lot of life into that unshakable belief, And so I think, I think that and it's a fun thing to be able to do, to work for yourself at this point, if you're ready for it, if it's something you love. Yeah.
So we weren't really sure. You asked me at the beginning what song, and I mean, I immediately thought She Works Hard for the Money. There's a documentary out right now on, I don't know where, about Donna Summer. And at first I was like, I don't know if this is the right song, but as we're sitting here, I was looking at the lyrics and oh my God, it's exactly the right. Because if you listen to and I'm going to read the lyrics here in a second, it really does speak to, if you are not in the right place, try something else. If you can't, but you don't have to spend 28 years have come and gone. I'll just go right into the lyrics now.
Yeah.
So 28 years have come and gone, and she's seen a lot of tears of the ones who come in. They really seem to need her there. It's sacrificing, working day to day for little money, just tips for pay, but it's worth it all just to hear them say that they care. She works hard for the money. So hard for it, honey. She works hard for the money. So you better treat her right.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want anyone to be working for 28 years in a job. I mean, it's great that this person, this waitress, I get, it sounds like, likes to hear that she's cared for, but make some money also.
Aw. I love this. I love this song so much. I can picture the actual video too.
Yeah.
I think what feels important here for me in terms of like closing this, and a lot of what you said, I'm still snapping on, but is like, and I say this as a mom, I say this as a coach, I say this as a friend, and to myself, like, there's so few things you can't change in your life. There's so few, like you can't probably be taller unless you wear like elevator shoes or something. And, you can't unbirth your kids, thankfully, but maybe there's some days we wish we could, I don't know. But you can, like, nothing is nothing is forever if you don't want it to be. And I think sometimes you just need permission. Just give yourself permission. And if you can't give yourself permission, we give you permission to assess yourself in these ways, because you may just find that you have a renewed sense of energy for what you're already doing when you go through that assessment. But if you don't, what a beautiful time. It's never too late to say, well, what else would I like to do? You know, and in this one beautiful life we currently have. So I think that permission is the word. Give yourself permission to ask yourself, am I happy? Is this really, in service to who I am now? And, without making anything up until now wrong. It's just like, what would I like to do with this question now? How do I want to answer it now? And what are my options? And if I don't know what my options are, get help. Talk to a friend, talk to a coach.
Absolutely. Amen. Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Going back to Charlotte. Well, as usual, this has been a fun conversation.
Yeah. It has.
And timely.
Yes. Always timely.
Always timely.
Weird how that always works out.
It is. Sometimes I think I manifest this shit.
You are a powerful manifester.
I am.
How often do I say that? I probably say that once a week.
At least. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening to This Week on Career Change. And as always, join us over on our different social medias to add to the conversation. If you're thinking about a career change, Kari and I would love to support you in that, because it's what we've been doing for a lot of years for a lot of students.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you again for listening. We are just absolutely loving the interaction and the growing audience. And if you feel so moved, please consider following. It's a really easy thing to do. Just hit the follow button or the plus sign, depending on what app you're using, and forward this to a friend. You probably know at least one person who's kind of in that quandary. Maybe this will be really helpful to them. We really appreciate you sharing this.
Absolutely. All right. We'll be back next week with the things we know.
So long.